Hey everyone, welcome to Indie Film Grit, a podcast about indie films and indie filmmakers. I am your host, Timothy Patrick, but you can call me Tim. In this episode, I'm going to talk about 5 great books about filmmaking. Now, these books are all different in their own way, and I recommend you read all of them. In fact, read as many film-related books as possible. The key to improving your craft is to always be learning. So here are 5 great books about filmmaking. Let's get into it. All right. The first book I want to talk about is The Filmmaker's Handbook, a comprehensive guide for the digital age. This book has a ton of information in it. It touches on the fundamentals of every single aspect of the filmmaking process, including sections on the old school tech like actual film cameras that used actual film. So it can get pretty technical. You know, it has depth of field charts and diagrams explaining the inverse square law. But these are things that come in handy for the indie filmmaker, and they're all right here at your fingertips. Want to make sure your 3-point lighting setup is right? Turn to the section on lighting. Want to know which microphone pickup pattern is best for your situation? Turn to the section on microphones. So basically, everything is in this book, The Filmmaker's Handbook. Check it out. The next book I want to talk about is Make Your Own Damn Movie, from the campy, grotesque mind of Lloyd Kaufman, the owner and founder of Troma Studios. Now, say what you will about Lloyd Kaufman and his films, but he's been doing his thing for over 40 years, making movies on the cheap. Having said that, don't take this book too seriously. Enjoy it. It's full of great stories from his life. And believe it or not, a lot of tips and insights into making indie films. And I'm a big fan of Lloyd Kaufman. I got to meet him and interview him on camera way back in 2008 at Comic-Con in San Diego. And I really enjoy his books. So check it out and make your own damn movie. Okay, the next book is Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez. This book is hilarious, true, and deeply inspiring. The entire book is made up of actual journal entries written by Rodriguez himself, and they document his struggle to make his first feature film, El Mariachi, which is ultimately the film that jump-started his career. This book is full of funny stories, like how he raised the $7,000 by subjecting himself to experimental medical testing. You see, back in the 90s, Kickstarter didn't exist, but he found a way. He found a way to fund his film regardless. So, what's your excuse? Maybe you should read this book and get motivated. It's a great read. Check it out. Rebel Without a Crew. Next up is an autobiography by the master filmmaker Martin Scorsese. The name of the book is Scorsese on Scorsese. Now, odds are if you're an indie filmmaker, you're a fan of Martin Scorsese's work. And if that's not the case, do yourself a favor. Lock yourself in a room and watch Mean Streets. Then watch Taxi Driver. Then Raging Bull. Then Goodfellas. Then Casino, and so on and so forth. My point is, Scorsese's films are inspirational, and they should be required viewing for all indie filmmakers. And this book makes a nice companion piece to his films. He talks about his successes and failures, his filmmaking methods, and even his childhood, growing up in Little Italy in New York. It's a real look at what makes him tick and why he is so driven to make such great films. Scorsese on Scorsese. Check it out. Okay. The final book I want to talk about is Bambi vs. Godzilla, written by the legendary David Mamet, one of the most talented writers of our time on both stage and screen. I mean, this guy wrote The Untouchables. He wrote Glengarry Glen Ross. And he wrote this book, Bambi vs. Godzilla, which can get strange at some points, as you might expect. It's funny because he's always ripping on the Hollywood money machine, like this evil entity that is all about profits and squashes creativity. He also shares insight to his screenwriting process, which is worth its weight in gold. So all in all, a truly unique book. And it's fun to crawl inside the mind of David Mamet. So check it out. Bambi vs. Godzilla. Well, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Indie Film Grit podcast. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at Indie Film Grit, and check out all the show notes over at indiefilmgrit.com. And if you're enjoying your time listening to the Indie Film Grit podcast, give us a rating. That would mean a lot. Well, I should really wrap this up, but before I go, let me ask you something. Do you have the courage, the passion, and the perseverance to make indie films? Do you have enough indie film grit?